Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. We're going to get into our next segment here. We've got top 5 coaches in the NFL. Obviously, there's going to be some coaches that are going to be left off of this list, but still bear mentioning. And we'll get to that, at the end of our list. We'll talk about some coaches that didn't quite make the list here. So, first of all, the number 5 that I have on my list is, Nick Sirianni of the Philadelphia Eagles, the guy who just won the Super Bowl a couple months ago against Kansas City. I think he doesn't get enough credit. That could possibly be because the Eagles fans at a time wanted him fired the year after he got them to the Super Bowl, the one that they ultimately lost to Kansas City. Right after that, they wanted him fired, and then the very next year he gets into the Super Bowl, and now they all love him again because that's just the way it is being an Eagles fan, I guess. But he's coached in 2 out of the last 3 Super Bowls. That's no small feat, of course, and his record is pretty good too overall. As the head coach in Philadelphia, it's 48-20, including playoffs in those 5 years. And like I said, getting them to the playoffs in each and every one of the last 3 seasons and getting to 2 Super Bowls in those last 3 seasons. And that's a really good achievement. I mean, they've done a really good job building that team. It's obviously not just Nick Sirianni. Howie Roseman, the GM, deserves a ton of credit, and he's gotten a ton of credit, but rightfully so, in building that team up and getting them to the formidable team that they are, a very, very difficult team to stop, especially on offense, but that defense is also very, very good. They are very well coached. They've got a very good coaching staff overall. Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator there, one of the best in the league, of course, but Nick Sirianni, of course, is the guy in charge. He's the head coach, so he's got to get a lot of the credit as well. He's doing a good job building that team and coaching that team up. And he's the perfect kind of coach for Philadelphia. He's got the right type of mindset. When you look at him or, some of his mannerisms and some of the things he says in press conferences and things of that nature, he's just, he's a Philly guy, and you can just kind of tell that. So it makes sense as to why Philly fans would hate him sometimes, because that's just kind of the way that kind of relationship is with Philadelphia. It's a volatile fan base, but I still think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and he's proved that, especially in these last 3 years or so, getting to those 2 Super Bowls, because there's a lot of coaches that have never even been to a Super Bowl, especially like the guy that I'm about to talk about right now, and that's number 4, and that's Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings. He was last year's Coach of the Year. And I think he has done a very good job there. Obviously, he's built a Super Bowl contender there with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, a strong defense. Last year they had Sam Darnold, and he revived his career, and Kevin O'Connell was a big reason why. So he's also got a 34-17 record since becoming head coach. His only thing that he gets a knock for, of course, is he is winless in the playoffs in his 2 appearances. He is 0-2. So, and last year was probably their best opportunity to win a playoff game, and they fell flat on their faces in the playoffs, of course, and they weren't able to get anything done there. So losing in the wild card round, of course. So that was not really his best moment, but of course, a lot of other factors with the offensive line not being able to protect Sam Darnold in the last couple games of that year. That was a big reason why they kind of had a little bit of a downfall. But if you take a look overall, Kevin O'Connell, he came into this season with a lot of question marks on his team, just in terms of the quarterback position, because they went and they drafted J.J. McCarthy, and of course that's a rookie. You don't know what you're going to get out of him, and he wasn't really lighting it up in college. They won a national championship at Michigan, but Michigan also had a very good defense and a good run game as well. J.J. McCarthy wasn't asked to do a whole lot at Michigan, so there's still questions there. But he went into that situation with the idea that J.J. McCarthy is going to be my starter day one. We're just going to throw the rookie out there, and he's going to take his lumps, and we're going to see what happens. Nobody thought that Minnesota was going to end up being 14 wins and on the cusp of being the number one seed in the NFC. I would challenge you to find one or two people that actually believe that prior to the season starting, and especially with the fact that J.J. McCarthy messed up his meniscus. He, got injured in the preseason. So then Sam Darnold has to take over. And at that time, people looked at Sam Darnold as the guy who didn't work out in New York and was never really that great and wasn't, considered a, star quarterback or whatever. So he was able to come in and revive his career a little bit and ended up making him a little bit of a payday this past offseason. So just Kevin O'Connell being able to do that and being able to resurrect Sam Darnold's career, he deserves a ton of credit for that, and that's why he's on the list at number 4. So number 3, I have Sean McVay of the Rams, and Sean McVay, I think, is one of the best coaches in the NFL, and obviously he wouldn't be on this list if he wasn't, or if I didn't think that, but he won the Super Bowl back in 2021 with the Rams. That was his second Super Bowl that he coached. Of course, he coached the Rams in the Super Bowl when they lost that low-scoring game to the Patriots a few years ago. And he was the youngest head coach to win a Super Bowl at 36 years old when he did that against the Bengals a few years back. And he was also the youngest head coach to reach a Super Bowl when he was 33. And he was the youngest head coach at the time of his hiring in the NFL at 30 years old. So, a lot of youngest, attributes to his resume, but he's been a very, very good head coach. He's one of those Shanahan disciples, of course. He was an offensive coordinator when he was in Washington as well, or at least he was an assistant when he was at Washington. And he's just part of that tree, that was a lot of those, guys that are good coaches now were on that same staff, with Kyle Shanahan as well. But, yeah, so Sean McVay, I think, is a very good head coach, and it's crazy whenever you watch any interviews with him and you see him just talk about certain plays that he remembers, and he's got like this crazy photogenic memory where he knows exactly what play somebody's talking about. Like if you say to him like, hey, do you remember that play that you ran on 3rd and 7 in the fourth quarter against the Jets 3 years ago or something like that, and he'll know exactly what you're talking about. You watch any of those interviews when he does that, it's pretty crazy that he can just remember things like that. But that just kind of shows you how much of a football maniac he is, and that's what partially what makes him so good at his job and what makes him one of the best coaches in the NFL is that commitment to being the best at what he does. And I mean, he's got an 88-57 record overall as the Rams head coach, including the playoffs, and he's got that Super Bowl win to his name. So, he's got right now, if he were to retire, he's got a very good resume, and, you could argue he could be in the conversation for Hall of Fame. Maybe he needs to coach a little longer before that happens, but he's still a very good head coach, and he deserves a lot of recognition, and he's got that Super Bowl. So, a lot of coaches that are still great end up not winning Super Bowls. So, him being able to coach in 2 and win 1 is, of course, an impressive feat on its own as well. So that's my number 3. Number 2, it kind of hurts me to put this one on here because he's a rival, of course, of the Steelers, but John Harbaugh of the Ravens won the Super Bowl back in 2012, hasn't been back since then. So that is a slightly growing concern amongst Baltimore fans. He's got 22 playoff appearances overall, which is the second most in the NFL since 2008. So he's obviously always consistently there, consistently in the playoffs or in the hunt for the playoffs. He's the only coach in NFL history to win a playoff game in 6 of his first 7 seasons. He also has 6 division titles. He's got 4 AFC championship appearances and a 172 and 104 overall record as the Ravens head coach. Of course, he began his career as a defensive assistant in Philadelphia and has now moved since, of course, being in Baltimore and has been there. He is the second longest tenured coach in the NFL right now behind Mike Tomlin. So he is a very, very good head coach, and obviously, you know, he's going to be around, I think, for a while. I mean, you get a lot of these talks that maybe the Ravens could move on from him because of the lack of success in the playoffs since having the teams that they've had, like with Lamar Jackson. But I honestly don't think that they're going to fire John Harbaugh. I think he leaves when he's ready to retire, sort of a similar situation to what's going on in Pittsburgh. Don't think either of those guys get fired. They're going to end up walking off into the sunset on their own terms. So, but John Harbaugh definitely, in my opinion, is the second best head coach in the league currently, and the number one head coach in the league currently. You got to give to Andy Reid. I mean, his resume speaks for itself, of course, but just in recent years, he has been to 3 straight Super Bowls with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's 3 straight AFC championship titles that he's won. He's won 3 Super Bowls overall, 3, of course, all with the Chiefs. He went to 1 with Philadelphia as the head coach there. And another very, very impressive stat that he has to his resume is he's the only coach in NFL history to lead 2 different franchises in all-time wins. Now that's a crazy stat when you think about it. You know, and those are 2 pretty successful franchises, you know, at least in recent years anyway, with the Chiefs and the Eagles. But, you know, Andy Reid, when he was with the Eagles, they were always competitive. You know, they went to about, 5 or so AFC or NFC championship games. I think there was a stretch in a year or a stretch there where they went to consecutive NFC championship games, and it just, it didn't actually ever turn into a Super Bowl championship in Philadelphia. They did get to 1 Super Bowl, but, his resume, like I said, speaks for itself. I mean, 130 wins as the Eagles head coach, 143 wins as the Chiefs head coach. He's got 273 wins all time, and that is 4th all time in NFL history in wins. I mean, what else can you say about Andy Reid? He's the best coach in the NFL, and I don't think it's close. So every single year they're going to be in the competition or be competitive, or be in the conversation for Super Bowl contenders. As long as he is there and Patrick Mahomes is also there, they're always going to be in that conversation because they're just too good of a duo together, to not be in that conversation every single year. So those are my 5 coaches. So I'll just run through them one more time just to review. Nick Sirianni of the Eagles comes in at number 5. Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings comes in at number 4. Sean McVay of the Rams. John Harbaugh as number 2 of the Ravens, and Andy Reid is number 1. And you can, looking back on that list, I might even potentially move Nick Sirianni to 4 and Kevin O'Connell to 5, just simply because Sirianni has won a Super Bowl, and Kevin O'Connell has not been able to do that. So, really, thinking about it now, I honestly don't know why I didn't put Sirianni at 4 instead of 5, but I'll just flip-flop that. So, but both of those guys deserve to be in the top 5 anyway. So, but yeah, though that's my list with, O'Connell at 5, Sirianni at 4, McVay at 3, Harbaugh at 2, and then, of course, Andy Reid at 1. All right, so that is that list. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some NFL draft prospects, some quarterbacks. I've got top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL draft in this upcoming draft. I'll rank my top 5 and kind of give an idea of where I think they might go as well. So just stick with us, and we're going to be right back right after this next break.